Welcome. I'm Jaclyn Kropp. I'm the chair of the AAEA Mentoring Committee. It's an honor to host the next installment of Listening to Diverse Voices. This series was started in 2020 to celebrate the unique journeys of our members and allow the panelists to share their experiences that may not show up on their CVs. Please note that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online with the recordings of past sessions. I will share the link in the chat to the past recordings in a moment. I encourage you to check these out. Each panelist will present for approximately 10 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A. If you have a question, please just drop it in the chat, and I'll collect the questions and pass them on to the panelists at the end. The panelists are joining us to share their professional journeys. The opinions expressed by the participants are their own, and unless explicitly stated as such, are not those of their respective organizations of employment or AAEA. Our first panelist is Cynthia Nickerson, who is currently the Deputy Chief Economist at the USDA. She joined the office of the Chief Economist in June of 2020. Prior to joining, she was the Director of the Market and Trade Economics Division at USDA's ERS, and earlier served on the management team of ERS's Resource and Rural Economies Division. Cynthia received her PhD in Agricultural and Resource Economics from the University of Maryland, an MS in Environmental Studies from California State University, and a BS in Accounting from Townsend University. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thanks, Jaclyn. Hey, everybody, for those who joined. I'm not sure what the geographic distribution is, but here in DC, we have a very wet and cloudy day going. Great day to have a cup of coffee and just kick back a bit and chat with us about, well, listen to a couple career paths, and then I hope to chat with you all about what your interests are. Pleased to be here. Jaclyn, thanks very much for the invitation. And I like these opportunities. It's a great way for me to connect with other folks in the profession, and I hope to learn as much about your interests and career paths as you might learn a little bit about mine. So let me just tell you a little bit about me. I grew up on a small farm in north central Maryland. I'm one of 5 kids. And to be perfectly honest, we were subject to my father's hobby. We moved to this farm from an urban area, and with 5 kids, he had a free source of labor. We literally started out with a small tractor. We were cutting down corn by hand, baling hay loose, and it was just a real wake-up call, moving from an urban area. But very early on, it taught me the value of hard work and grit and determination. And I loved it. It was really a fantastic opportunity for me, even though I was 9 years old at the time, and you would think that's the worst time to leave your friend group and to try something new. But for me, it was just super exciting. And, you know, all the various projects we had going, we were big 4-H'ers and such. What it taught me were early lessons in setting goals, working hard, and being intentional. And I will say that because we were subject to plenty of hot, sweaty summer days out in the fields, being lent out to our neighbors to work in their fields and picking rocks, you name it, we did it. But it also really taught me the value of community and just the sheer value in pulling together as a group. One early example was a neighbor's dairy barn burned down on Christmas Eve, and the entire farm community banded together to bring the 80 cows over to our farm, which happened to have milking equipment but no dairy cattle, and we became a dairy operation for a period of time. So when you all are thinking about your, where you grew up and where your career might take you, I do think one early lesson for me was setting goals, but also following my passion. Sometimes some of us have our heads together enough to be starting down this journey when we're teenagers. Others, if you're like me, didn't happen until in my 20s. So I started off when I was an undergraduate pursuing a degree in accounting, and that was my first career. That was largely from my parents' choice because I didn't really know what to do with my life. But it was a really fantastic experience. I worked in the private sector for a number of years, got my CPA degree, worked in the private sector, and worked for a company that was on track to go through an initial public offering process. That was a massive amount of change. And I'll circle back to this idea of change because obviously where I sit right now, going through a lot of change. But everybody has at various points in their lives. Went through a lot of change while we were going through an initial public offering process. Our company purchased another one, so I was responsible for managing that entire merger and coming up with credible numbers at a time when we're trying to go public. Got through all that, and I sort of reached a plateau in that career. I was on the easy track, but it was so predictable. And I was looking around me at the time I was living in Southern California, looking around me at huge swaths of farmland being converted to urban development overnight. And it just brought me back to my roots and made me think really hard about, what's happening to the ag sector? What happens at this intersection of the, ag and urban interface? What policy decisions are being made? What are those trade-offs? And, how do private decisions interact with public policy? And so I decided to essentially quit my job and go back to graduate school, which of course was a huge leap because I was leaving a very comfortable salary, comfortable surroundings, and went back to living on a grad student salary. I first pursued a master's degree in environmental studies, which was great, but that wasn't quite hitting the mark in terms of where I wanted to be ultimately. So then I went to graduate school to get my PhD. And in that process, I mean, it was a big risk that I took, but I really think that when people believe in themselves and pursue their passions, things work out. And I was fortunate in graduate school. I had a fantastic advisor in Nancy Boxtel. I loved the research I was doing, and I did pursue my degree. My dissertation was on this issue of farmland preservation and what's happening with those policies at the urban fringe. Another strategy that helped me along my way was to be intentional and to just work hard and strive for excellence. Tried to do that through graduate school. When I got out of grad school, I considered an academic track. But for me, my passion really was sitting very close to this intersection of public policy and economic research. So I took a job with the Economic Research Service, which was a really great opportunity to launch my career. Learned a lot at ERS. ERS is a place where you can do a lot of fantastic research and get exposed to the policy process without getting caught up in a lot of the day-to-day of it. And in fact, that's one way that we sitting at the Office of the Chief Economist distinguish ourselves from ERS. We might call ourselves the 45-minute economists. We're definitely, on the front line there. ERS is in a position where they can be more anticipatory in what they do, which I think is a great place for folks at ERS. And it was great for me when I left graduate school. So another thing that was critical for me along my career path was to seek out opportunities to advance my career and also my leadership goals. And for me, one way to do that was to do a detail. There are opportunities within academia to go spend time in other places. I would encourage folks to just grab those opportunities where you can. Put yourself in situations that aren't comfortable. Expand your ability to think in different ways and communicate with people who have different viewpoints. For me, I did a detail at the Council of Economic Advisors. This was during the Obama administration. Typically, they're one-year details, but I did 2. At the time, my kids were in their, I had one child who was 7, the other was 10. I was working really long hours, but I remember my younger one commenting like, "Mom, I've never seen you so happy." Like, it was not that I wasn't happy before, but I was in my element. I really liked sometimes being the only economist in the room. I learned so much about how to communicate with folks in different disciplines, how to be strategic, how to manage and get results. It was very eye-opening. So around that time, I also started taking leadership training courses, and I did a great deal of reading on my own whenever I travel. My favorite place to go is in the bookstore. Harvard Business Review always has very easy to read books. I mean, sometimes I would stand there and in 20 minutes, just skim through the book and get the gist of it. So I look for opportunities to learn a lot as efficiently as possible. It was after that detail that when I returned to the Economic Research Service that I moved into management roles there. And as Jaclyn said, I was on the management team of the Resource and Rural Economics Division, which is where I had the great opportunity to work with Jenny when she started her career at ERS. Very obviously a rising star there right from the start. And then I moved to the Market and Trade Economics Division, and that happened right around the time that ERS started going through its huge transformation and relocation out to Kansas City. So that was a second opportunity for me to be in a situation where there was just a huge amount of organizational change that I was responsible for. Those kinds of opportunities, everybody goes through change. To be honest, going to graduate school for me was a huge change, leaving the private sector, going into graduate school. But what I think really matters a lot is taking a bit of a long run view. Keep sight of where your goals are in life. And just like the stock market, things are gonna, sometimes pivot a little bit, but just keep sight of where you want to be. I think that's important during periods of change. And then in 2020, this was during the pandemic, I moved over to the Office of the Chief Economist. I wasn't expecting to leave ERS, but Warren Preston, who was the previous Deputy Chief Economist, retired. And I was on my way moving to Kansas City as director of the Market and Trade Economics Division when this opportunity opened up. And sitting in the Office of the Chief Economist has elements that are very much like a White House experience at CEA, except it's within USDA. So here we work very closely on a day-to-day basis with politicals, with members of Congress, with the White House, with leaders and other agencies on pressing issues that require economic expertise. We are not the ones making the decisions. So in that respect, we're like ERS in that we maintain our independence. But we have the opportunity to be sitting in the room, in these conversations, providing economic expertise, whether it's trade, whether it's ag policy, disaster assistance, pesticide issues, Endangered Species Act, conservation, biofuel policy. We have experts across a wide variety of areas, and it gives us an opportunity to weigh in on a huge number of really interesting economic issues every day. Farm Bill is another big area where we are actively involved in the department's efforts. So yes, I've been here since 2020, and maybe that's a good time to pause and let somebody else take the floor.
In the essence of time, we need to move on to our next panelist. So this is perfect. Our second panelist is Jill McCluskey. She is currently the director of the School of Economic Sciences and Regents Professor at Washington State University. She is currently serving as chair of the board on agriculture and natural resources of the National Academies of Sciences, and also as president-elect of the International Association of Agricultural Economists. Jill is a fellow of several associations, including AAEA. In addition, she has served as the past president of the association. Jill is the founder of the Lauren McCluskey Foundation, and she earned her PhD in Agricultural and Resource Economics from the University of California, Berkeley, an MS in Agricultural Resource Economics from the University of California, Berkeley, an MA in economics from Georgetown University, and a BA in business economics and political science from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Welcome, Jill.
Well, thank you so much, Jaclyn. I'm so happy to be here. I'll get right into answering the questions. I'm the only one who made a PowerPoint, so I'll just get right into it. So the first question was, how did your career path evolve, and were there any unexpected turns that significantly influenced where you are today? Well, as Jaclyn said, I started out at UC Santa Barbara in the late 80s, and I was fascinated by an environmental economics course. And that actually made me just think, wow, the power of economics, and that you can make these changes without command and control to do it. I also enjoyed writing, and I learned how to write as a political science major. And I feel like that has served me well in writing journal articles and just doing research. I also did a concentration in accounting. So I was a little bit like Cindy, and I worked for foster farms in California as a staff accountant in charge of the contracts for company farms and contract growers. Then I decided I wasn't really happy with accounting, so I got a master's in economics from Georgetown, and I also did extra coursework in math and statistics from Berkeley. I worked a little bit more in consulting, and I got married in 1994. Then I returned to grad school at Berkeley and got a PhD. And the picture there is with some of my classmates. So we had the only all-female office in Giannini. I had a daughter who was born in 1997 and a son who was born in 1999. And so in 1998, my husband and I were looking for 2 faculty jobs, and I had to turn down flyouts because there's no opportunity for him. So he's a physicist. And when I was in grad school, one of my fields was, I started out in environmental economics, but one of my fields was industrial organization. And so when my husband was offered a tenure track job at WSU, Washington State University, they also offered me a job in agricultural marketing, and I could use my knowledge of industrial organization. And this really changed my research direction. I still could do some environmental economics, but I've really enjoyed focusing on agricultural marketing. So a challenge is that I needed childcare. So my children were born 2 years apart. My first child was born when I was a 3rd-year PhD student, and the second child was born the summer after my first year as a tenure track assistant professor. And I felt like finding childcare was one of the most challenging things I faced as a new professor. And it's especially hard in a college town that's in a non-urban setting. And it's really difficult to concentrate on your work if you're worried about the care that your children are getting. After a difficult waiting period, I did get a spot in the on-campus childcare. So other career highlights, I really enjoyed working with grad students and was chair of graduate studies. Then I got into being associate director, where I made teaching assignments and the graduate TA and RA assignments. And then for the last 6 years, I've been the director of the school. And so it's personnel issues, meetings, and I enjoy hiring, mentoring, and strategies. I don't really enjoy the meetings. So I decided, I've been recruited a little bit to be a dean, and I decided, nope, that's not for me. When I feel like the major highlight is the PhD advisees I've had. So I'm so proud of them. I've had 49 graduate, and that's just been a joy for me. I've also really enjoyed being involved in professional associations and the Board on Agriculture and Natural Resources of the National Academies. I had a brief stint as an editor of the American Journal of Agricultural Economics, and I've made the case that we need more female editors to have diversity of reviewers and ideas, but also it's a lot of work. So I don't want to be an editor in the future, but I'm glad I had that experience. Research and co-authors are the most fun, and I feel like being a professor is the best job in the world because we are paid to think about and discuss interesting problems. So another question was, how do you define success, and has this definition changed? And at the beginning of my career, success was all about publishing and grants. And then as I started having PhD students, I got more satisfaction from their successes than my own. And then as a department head, success of my faculty is important. But then overall, I would say success is really enjoying what you do. So advice to early career, I would say take advantage of work-life programs when you need them. So I used all three, and I think it made a big difference. So I used the dual hiring that my husband and I were both able to get jobs at the same university. I used on-campus childcare, and I used family medical leave. And my advice would be ask for them if they're not suggested. I also would say advice is to build and strengthen your network. So join professional associations, volunteer, attend conferences, attend talks, ask questions, go out for dinner and drinks. You don't have to drink alcohol, just go. And also just introduce yourself, ask people questions. I like this. This is a picture of my friend Wendy Emberger, but with her daughter and husband. But I just think it's important to be open to relationships and children. They can cause happiness, which might increase productivity, and it's not a choice between the two. They can be complementary and supportive. But if you choose to have children, it can help you to focus on your work while you're there, but invest in good childcare and build a community. Or if you choose not to have children, that's great too, but put your effort into building a supportive network of friends. And then I want to say that remember that setbacks happen to everyone, and it's how you respond that matters. And I love this book, Option B, and decide what you want and persevere. And life isn't a sprint race. And learn from what happened, but move on. And it's okay to grieve, but try to focus on the positive. And so how do you maintain a healthy and active lifestyle, and how's that changed? Well, I would say be organized. I make lists with deadlines, and set regular hours. Consistency matters, and limit your time at work, because I actually feel there can be negative returns to working, that you're more productive and creative if you don't work all the time. But exceptions are allowed. There are always deadlines that you might have to work a long time. And also schedule time for your health, and prioritize exercise, sleep, and healthy foods, and make time for friends and others. And I won't go through that, so for time reasons. Have you had any mentors? And if so, what have they taught you? And so I think that both formal and informal mentorship is super helpful. And if it's not helpful, switch to someone who's a better fit. And so have a research mentor, especially as an early career faculty member. You can publish and submit grant proposals together. Teaching mentor, ask them for feedback to attend your lecture and give feedback. A department mentor, how to navigate within the politics of your department. And then offer and accept peer mentorship, talk about strategies and issues. And so what my mentors taught me, so my advisor was Gordon Rouser, and he was actually the dean at the time when he was my advisor, and he taught me how to manage students and administration. David Zilberman was a professor in my department, and in grad school, and he's been a close contact ever since. He taught me how big ideas can matter and being strategic. Ron Middlehammer is one of my colleagues here at Washington State University, and he taught me to put work into my teaching, and that many other things, but especially econometrics. And then Jo Swinen is one of my peer mentors, and he taught me the importance of networks and telling a story, being excited about research. And so with that, I'm done, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Jill. That was great. Our next panelist is Tatiana Borisova. She is an agricultural economist in the farm economy branch of USDA's Economic Research Service. Prior to joining ERS, she worked as an extension specialist and associate professor at the University of Florida. Before joining the University of Florida, she worked for West Virginia University. Tatiana received her PhD in agricultural, environmental, and regional economics from Pennsylvania State University. Welcome, Tatiana.
Thank you, Jaclyn. It's an honor to be a part of this panel. I'm learning so much from others, and let me share my story. So I am a part of Economic Research Service Farm Economy branch, and our team, Farm Income team, is responsible for releasing farm income and wealth statistics. And for those who are not very familiar with ERS, ERS is one of the principal statistical agencies, which means that the data that we publish become a part of official US government statistics. So the team that I'm a part of, led by Kerry Ritkovskis, is responsible for one data product that includes quite a range of financial indicators that characterize the current state of agricultural industry, as well as has a long history of more than 100 years time series of past data about agricultural industry in the United States. And when I talk about financial indicators, well, it includes cash receipts, it includes production expenses, government payment, it includes debt level, credit level. It also includes some of the off-farm income indicators, because Economic Research Service focuses not only on the economics of farming, but also broader prosperity of rural areas. We have annual data, and we have them on the state level for the estimates. And estimates are usually published for the past year and the whole history. And where I play, I guess, more active role on the team is on the forecast side. So for the current year, on annual time scale, national time scale, we also release forecasts that are kind of measuring the pulse of agricultural industry this year. And I joined ERS 4 years ago, and this process of searching for the job is still very fresh on my mind. So I wanted to share what factors played in my decision to switch from academic position at University of Florida to Economic Research Service, a government position. So one factor is, of course, is the reputation of Economic Research Service. I looked back at my even PhD dissertation. I used cost of production data from ERS. I was studying using Mark Ribado ERS reports on non-point source pollution when I was in Penn State doing my dissertation on water quality and issues and economics. Farm income team, well, when I was part of extension at University of Florida, almost every of my presentation would start with characterizing agriculture in the state, and I would rely on the data from farm income team. So reputation is important, was important for me. The mission of Economic Research Service, which is high quality objective research. I felt that this is very close to what I was doing as extension specialist. So extension, the third mission of land-grant universities, is to extend research to the members of the public. So research-based information, addressing the needs of people outside academia. But for extension, we primarily work on state or regional level. ERS does the same, research-based objective information on the national level. So that was an opportunity to have broader impact of the job. I actually reached former employees of ERS to learn why they left. And, they were sharing that, they became better researchers after ERS experience. During the interview, I paid attention to the culture, the type of interaction that people in the team I was planning to join, type of interactions, friendliness, type of questions. I did not feel like I was examined, it was true, friendly, supportive atmosphere. So culture in the organization, opportunities to collaborate, stability of the position, geographic location of the position. I was in Florida, my family was in Washington, D.C. I was looking for opportunities to move to Washington, D.C. So that's where I am now. And, one question from the list that Jill was focusing on, one question really resonated with me, and it was about most challenging moments in my career and how I navigated. And, each of us had a lot of challenging moments, but because in the past we feel like, well, we overcame them, and maybe the current challenge is really the true most challenging, right? So I am a member of USDA. I work in Washington, D.C., and I'm currently waiting to learn what will happen with my position. And as agencies working on optimizing and reducing the size of the workforce and relocating away from Washington to be closer to farmers, ranchers, and foresters and consumers we serve. And I'm here not as a member of the agency. I'm here as a private citizen who is facing uncertainty about my job, whether I'll have a job, whether the job will exist, where it will be. I probably cannot relocate. I really like what I'm doing. As I said, I was using the data in my dissertation, my prior work. I became a part of the team who produced the data. It was very rewarding experience for me. So I don't want to leave. And the fact that we are all facing this uncertainty, my colleagues who became my friends, gives me comfort because I can go to my colleagues and, share what's on my mind and always hear a word of support. But it also makes it more difficult that we are all facing this uncertainty because, people who trained me for the past 4 years, they are facing this uncertainty. I don't know if I can rely on their knowledge and expertise in the future, even if I stay with the agency. So it is a difficult moment now and very emotional as well. What helps me navigate this moment? Well, one is that as Jill and Cindy already shared, is that, changes are normal, and I do look at other examples in the profession who successfully switched between government and academia. And of course, Jenny here is a great example of switching from government to academia, and others as well. I switch from academia to government. I see a lot of examples, people going from government to private sector, for example. So we kind of should maybe in some ways be prepared for the changes and leaps in the career. It took me more than a year to find a job at ERS, so I'm giving myself a year to find another job, and I encourage all of you not to be discouraged from the very beginning. A lot of time I spent to just, tailor the resume. It was difficult for me to reformat my academic resume to government format. Of course, now with AI, maybe it takes less time. But another point is that, job market keeps evolving, and it takes time to build the skills that are required currently on the job market. Say, when I was considering switching to government position, I actually took a detour, and my last 3 years as an extension specialist and associate professor at UF, I actually shared my academic position with a state government type position with economic and demographic research, which is a part of Florida legislature, the think tank, to just show this experience on my resume and expand, I guess, the range of opportunities and be more competitive on the government type of positions. And the last thought, I have been investing also in learning additional skills. One course I recently learned was talking about treasuring every experience you have. And I think it does apply to your career switches as well. These are not detours, these are not, cul-de-sacs with no exit. These are treasures that add additional tools, that expands your network, and that make you be able to differentiate yourself once you go to the job market. As a graduate of land-grant university, as former employee of 2 major land-grant universities, University of Florida and West Virginia University, I say that those of you who are from land-grant university, you already have expanded range of opportunities, because the research that you conduct address needs of people in the state. You have an opportunity to publish in outreach type of, journals and magazines. You have an opportunity to learn from your professors who go and work with members of the public, all these facilitation skills, communication skills, establishing trust with community is something that maybe artificial intelligence is not yet that, it does not have expertise of doing people skills. You have this chance to learn it. So yeah, land grant, extension mission, investing in expanding your skill set through trying different jobs and figuring out what you want to do. With that, I turn it back to Jaclyn.
Thank you, Tatiana, for sharing your journey. Our final panelist is Jenny Ifft, who is newly promoted, congratulations, to the position of professor and Flinchbaugh Agricultural Policy Chair at Kansas State University. Before joining Kansas State University, she was an assistant professor at the Cornell University Charles H. Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management, and worked in the farm economy branch of USDA's Economic Research Service. She has a PhD from the University of California, Berkeley, a Master's of Philosophy from the University of Cambridge, and a BS from the University of Illinois. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be a part of this panel, especially with some of my people I see as mentors or examples. I guess I'll start. I haven't answered all the questions. I think you sent us about 10 of them, Jaclyn. But I'll start off chronologically. So I was born at the beginning of the 1980s farm crisis in central Illinois. My family had a small farm. And I think the one thing my parents always wanted me to do is to go to college. That was such a big deal. So I like to say it was the only time I really, really listened to them because I just never stopped. But I did an undergraduate degree at the University of Illinois in agricultural economics. In my sophomore year, I had a faculty advisor, Jerry Nelson, and he said, "Oh, you have good grades. You should take extra math and think about grad school." And for some reason, that sounded kind of fun. So I did that. At some later point, he said, maybe, you should think about maybe going abroad, applying for scholarships. And so, having a mentor there was a big deal, or just having people make those suggestions. So, so after my undergrad, I got a scholarship to go to Cambridge for a year to do a one-year master's degree. So that was a phenomenal experience. Then I was outside of academia for 3 years. I worked for the World Bank in East Asia, got into UC Berkeley. And I think the first year of my PhD, I'd been out for 3 years. My math wasn't as strong as most people in my cohort. It's sufficient, but not as strong. So I was kind of not having a lot of fun. I was like, why am I here? And so I went and I talked to David Rolton-Holst and David Zilberman about doing research, and they gave me some opportunities to work with them in projects in Vietnam. And that kind of changed my whole trajectory. I was excited about doing research again. My focus was on international development at this time, more international focus, but I was also, I think I got interested in farmland markets and ended up working at getting a job with the USDA Economic Research Service. I didn't even know what it was at the time. So they had me work on the farm business income forecast. And I ended up doing some briefings for the farm income forecast, also doing work on finance and insurance. I had great mentorship. So Cindy was there. We got to work together. Mitch Morehart, Dave McGrann. I don't know if these names mean anything to anybody, but just on all, research, policy, just people looking at my writing and say, why did you write this sentence? It doesn't make any sense. So that was important time. I guess also, people talked about family. So my husband's also a professor. So everything I kind of did was join at this point. It made it a lot more complicated in some ways, but I was almost 3 years into ERS, and I loved it. It was phenomenal. This was back when we were all in DC, And we were in cubicles, and I thought it was humiliating because I got this PhD and they put me in a cubicle. What the heck? But it turned out that I was sitting next to a bunch of other economists, and we had lunch together, and we'd talk about coding or where we were going to go get a drink after work or just anything. And it was, you know, with like 200 other people that were from similar fields who were, you know, passionate about their work. And it was such a cool environment at the time. So I was all in. And then this job came up at Cornell, was research and extension and farm and agribusiness management. So I was like, heck, I'll give it a shot. These kind of positions aren't going to come up very much. I remember when I was talking to somebody who was interviewed, the first time I called someone about the position, like, why do you, like, basically, why are you qualified? And it's like, well, I worked on the farm income forecast for the whole US. And that seemed to be, it's like, okay, let's talk. So yeah, I ended up getting that position, which, you know, was super exciting at the time. I also got pregnant around the same time and showed up there 6 months pregnant. So it was kind of a crazy transition. Cornell was incredibly supportive of me. I mean, throughout the whole 6 years I was there, the faculty and leadership. So it was a great place to work. I didn't know how to write a grant, or I'd never supervised a graduate student or anything. And I was able to kind of, or what an extension program meant for that matter. So I was really able to kind of ease into all of this, get mentored, but also be independent. So that was yeah, very, very cool experience. I was there, I guess it was about 4.5 years in. My husband and I had to go on the job market again, or he was on the job market, so I went on the job market too. And it took about 1.5 years. I had my second kid at the same time. I don't know how I did it. And it was really challenging. I think I had a couple offers. And I think Kansas State was the last place that I interviewed. And I had the offer, and my husband found out University of Kansas also had a forthcoming theory position. And so K-State held my offer so he could interview for that. In January 2020, he interviewed, I think out of 6 candidates, he got it. And so we sort of both accepted right before the pandemic hit. Luckily, they kept our positions. So we moved to Kansas in January 2020. And it's been phenomenal here. I guess I think my role is still, you know, research, teaching, and extension and agricultural policy, really focused on policy risk and finance now. And yeah, I've been very happy here. I have wonderful colleagues. I love living in college. You know, Manhattan's a great college town. I think there's a lot of great college towns out there. But part of a great research community, a great town. I get to work with a lot of the farm organizations, producer groups here. You know, being in Kansas, agriculture is very risky. We have a lot of resource problems with water access. So I feel like it's a great place to be an agricultural economist right now. As I transition to being a full professor, I'm still trying to have a research program. I'm still working with graduate students, but also thinking about what does mentorship look like? How could I have leadership in policy? How can I have leadership in the profession? What that's going to look like. So we talked a lot about the definition of success. And I think at this point, impact has become really, really important. You know, a couple themes throughout was, you know, I've had people who have supported me, and I didn't even mention everybody, but people who supported me and steered me and sort of, you know, gave me ideas for what I could do that I wouldn't have known it otherwise. So that was a big deal. I think not knowing my place always, or sticking my nose into stuff where if I was shy, I might have not done it. I had a dean at University of Illinois who said, you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think, I mean, we're economists, we're all a little uncomfortable intrinsically, but yeah, just being that's had a big role. I also think, and especially I guess at ERS and Cornell, having time to develop as an economist, to not just get thrown into things. And now I can get thrown into things and that's fine. But then I had, you know, specific things I was working on or I was getting feedback on. At ERS, like the editing, the detail and attention to what you did. I don't think I've ever had that. And that's still, I think that kind of stuck with me. So that was pretty important too. But I love this work and I love being a part of the profession, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions.
Thank you, Jenny. We have about 10-12 minutes for questions. If we have any questions from the audience, you can either drop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Just as a reminder, before we start the Q&A, the panelists are joining us to share their professional journeys. And while they're welcoming questions, please note that they may not be able to comment on some of the specific challenges currently facing their organizations. So are there any questions from the audience? So the first question is that many of you have diverse backgrounds and experiences. How has this affected your approach to teaching and research?
I can start just that I felt like my political science background helped me to be a better researcher because it helped me understand the policy side a little bit better, and also made it easier to write because I was forced to write all these papers as an undergraduate. And I think having a little bit more of a broad background helps you just be able to bring a better perspective into thinking about, like, why is this interesting and how does it impact people? So hopefully we can bring those experiences in, and I even think that I specialized in environmental economics and then switched to agricultural economics helped me, or to agricultural marketing helped me even bring methods from environmental economics that other people hadn't done before to other areas.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think that cross-fertilization of ideas and areas of specialty or expertise really enriches not just one's own research, but I think that of the profession as a whole. So when I was in graduate school, I did teach economics courses on the side, but teaching has not been a part of my portfolio. Research obviously was earlier in my career. Now I really get a lot of value in supporting the research of others. I would say a couple things have become very evident to me, and I don't think it's just because of where I sit now and the fact that I interact a lot with policy folks. It matters to know your audience. If you don't know your audience, you can't teach effectively and you can't do research effectively. And Jenny mentioned, getting feedback on why did I write this particular sentence? I mean, writing in plain language is the other thing. You make it digestible, but you have to know your audience and what it is they're really interested in. I served on the communications committee for AAEA for a number of years, and we actually hosted a workshop after one of the meetings 5 years back or so. And it's quite clear that a lot of scientists tend to write in a particular way. We've got this formula. I will tell you, I've got this confirmation from editors of journals. If you're writing an abstract and you don't include your results, don't think of the abstract as a teaser, and that's going to make people want to read the rest of your paper, right? They'll read the rest of the paper if they see the results and they realize they need more information. Write in plain language, be very targeted, don't waste people's time, and just know your audience.
I guess I can go next. I think there's a lot of different ways you could answer this question. One thing, I think we have a lot of graduate students here, so I think, you know, like in grad school, you're so focused on sort of methods and writing, and once you get out into the profession, I don't know how much I say, oh, they didn't teach me this. But having sort of leadership experience and being able to see the whole, you know, whether you're putting together a grant or a project, I think that's something you kind of develop organically, but it's going to be really important in your career. So I think that's not something to discount.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we are all interested in applied research. So asking interesting research questions and knowing which data exists and how they are collected, what method is used to collect the data, what are the limitations of models and data. That's what comes with different experiences. I mean, yeah, water economics that I was doing back at the University of Florida is not possible without knowing or having some experience in natural resource management. Here at Economic Research Service, I'm kind of interested in role of education and science in, say, productivity of agriculture, and that comes from my background in extension. So it does help you identify interesting research topics, and of course, with experiences, you get a network of collaborators on which you can rely as well.
So time for a couple more questions. So one question is, can you speak more about the process of navigating spousal hires?
I know both Jenny and I have gone through that. And then I've been on the other side of it too, as a department chair, so hiring couples too. I think that it's, so in my situation, my husband is an experimental physicist, so the startup for a lab is like $1 million. And so it's much harder to be the first person. So I was definitely the trailing partner, or the partner hire. But I think just looking for opportunities, and I wouldn't say it to, as a new PhD, I wouldn't say it early. I would make, I would have them want to hire you first, and then you, as part of the negotiation, bring that up. I've had I always, as a department chair, we have a policy that is for spousal accommodation, and so I always tell everyone that we have this policy, and I can tell you more about it if you have questions about that, and so you have to be careful not to ask illegal questions. So you can't really ask about a relationship, but you can just tell everyone this policy exists, and we can talk about it further. But I feel like I've had some places interested in us as more mature faculty, and I think it gets easier as you get older to have, or maybe not, I don't know, but be able to hire two people if they know both of you, so that, but I think it's really individualized. I'll pass it off to Jenny.
Yeah, I think sometimes it works out, and sometimes there's no silver bullet, and it's just it's hard for people. And I think it's, even if you don't have a spouse in academia, it can be challenging. It's a part of modern life. So I mean, with the academic spouses, I think, yeah, if you're just starting out and people don't know you, they're gonna have to get interested in you first. You could definitely get conflicting advice on this. I did have people say, sort of my second round, oh, well, if we, it might have been helpful to know earlier, but it does depend where you are in your career. If you're more senior and you won't go somewhere unless your spouse can figure it, like, you might want to bring that up. or they might appreciate it, because there may be an opportunity, there may be absolutely none. And, you know, going on a fly out and giving a seminar is a ton of work. And I mean, there's some cost to that for you. So that's, I'd say, a personal decision. I think, you know, my experience, most places were very supportive, or they acted supportive. I mean, I think, yeah, I think department heads are completely used to this and probably almost expect this now. I know my department said once, is the comment was, well, there's always an issue, because if they're a single, you know, they're in Manhattan, Kansas, so it's one thing or the other. But it's, you know, there's, you know, also knowing what you're willing to do or not do. You know, are you willing to, you know, have a short commute, or are you, you know, willing to have a commute by one person has to be flying? I think that would be my, you know, where I would not want to do that. But yeah, it can be done, and people have found ways to navigate, and I'm happy to talk to people offline too.
Thanks, Jenny and Jill. So maybe one more quick question, since we're almost out of time. The profession and technology and the political environment, everything is changing around us. Are there any skills that you recommend developing to succeed as agricultural economists, given these changes?
If I were to say two words paired, relationship building. Build relationships and keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
Be able to communicate your research and why it matters, on top of relationship building. That might be number one.
I cannot have one skill, but I would say diversify. In the risky market, we diversify, so have diverse experiences.
Yeah.
Did you have any final thoughts to add?
Yeah. I would just say, make sure you have the quantitative skills that can navigate and use data, because everything is data. Yeah.
Definitely agree. Thank our wonderful panelists for joining, and our audience. So if you're new to the association, I do encourage you to explore joining some of the various sections of the association. Some of the committees and the sections that I've joined early in my career include the Committee on Women in Agricultural Economics and the Applied Risk Analysis section. These sections have been very instrumental in me building my networks, so I encourage you to explore them as a way of building your network. I also want to draw your attention to some upcoming activities that we have from the mentorship committee of the association. So we will be doing a one-on-one mentoring matching coming up soon. So check your email. There'll be a brief survey that you'll need to complete either as a mentee or a mentor. And then we'll also have other activities at the annual meetings this summer, including a mixer. So check your email and look out for those announcements. Thank you again for our panelists. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences.